What is up, guys? Welcome to my review for the 21st movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and that is Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel seems to be like the most controversial movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe like ever. I mean, looking at the IMDb score or the review bombing on Rotten Tomatoes, there are a lot of people who already hated the movie off the bat. Now, I didn't think the trailers looked amazing or anything, and I was a little bit worried about the movie, but I don't think it was fair to actually be this skeptical about how the movie would turn out. I think this movie is actually not bad. I think it's basically just average Marvel quality, which is a pretty high quality for me, like at least for superhero movies. I think this is an average Marvel movie in terms of quality, and I don't think it's any worse than most of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, there are a lot of problems with the movie and a lot of things I like, so I'll go over all of those in this review, because obviously this is a review, but keep in mind this is a spoiler review, so if you haven't seen the movie, you probably shouldn't watch this review. Now, what this movie was trying to accomplish was mainly to introduce Carol Danvers, aka Captain Marvel, as a character who would also appear in Avengers Endgame and lead the fourth phase of the Marvel Cinematic Universe after Iron Man and Captain America are most likely gone after Avengers Endgame. But Captain Marvel was introduced in this movie, and I think that after this movie, I'm a lot less worried about the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because Captain Marvel is actually a pretty great character, and I think that she can definitely hold her own franchise as well as lead the Marvel Cinematic Universe going forward, along with like Spider-Man, Black Panther, and Doctor Strange. I think Captain Marvel is a great addition to the universe. I think actually Brie Larson did a great job in the role for the most part, and I do think that also her powers are really fun. Like, they're really great to watch. Like, visually, it's pretty awesome to see. It's been said that she's the most powerful superhero in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which, going off this movie, that is pretty evident. At least she's equal to Thor, how Thor was in Infinity War, but obviously it's been said she's the most powerful. But also, I think the character is a lot of fun. The costume is pretty amazing. It's probably one of, or if not the best costume for a superhero in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I also really like the use of her origin story in this movie. Most of it is shown through flashbacks, because she has lost her memory, and she already is the Captain Marvel, kind of just that she unlocks some powers at the end, that she gets a new costume at the end, but she starts the movie as already having these powers. For the most part, just her hand is tied, like she says in the movie, and I do like how they used that in the movie. I think that made the whole origin story a lot more interesting, and I really like how the origin story uses the Tesseract, which I don't think, I know for a fact it doesn't do that in the comics. She has a completely different origin story, but this universe really uses the Infinity Stones to give these characters a lot of abilities, like Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, Vision, and now Captain Marvel. They're all connected to Infinity Stones, so I really like that. The fact that Captain Marvel is connected to the Tesseract, which was the main Infinity Stone in this universe, is definitely very interesting in this movie. I really like all the origin story connection in Captain Marvel, and in the end, when she unlocks the ability that she's supposed to have, she can now fly, she can shoot way more powerful beams of whatever she has. I really like that moment. I think that was an awesome moment, like this awesome hero moment when she unlocks all of her abilities, and later she starts flying, which was an awesome moment as well. I think that for the most part, this movie did a great job with Captain Marvel as a character, from her origin story, her costume, her abilities, and just Captain Marvel as a character. That being said, I don't think this movie had that many great aspects about it outside of Captain Marvel as a character, and really the characters in general. There are a lot of great characters in this movie, like Captain Marvel and Nick Fury. I think the de-aging effect on Nick Fury is insane. It looks so real, and Samuel L. Jackson does a great job in the role as a much younger and less experienced Nick Fury, who this is his first rodeo as opposed to him in the future, where it's pretty clear he knows what he's doing and he's dealt with things like this before, because he has with Captain Marvel. Now, I do like Nick Fury in general. I do like his back and forth with Carol, and like the buddy cop aspect of this movie is a lot of fun, but there's one thing I don't like, which is how he lost his eye, which is that Goose actually scratched out his eye. Now, I also did really like Goose in the movie. I thought he was a lot of fun, or she, I don't know its gender, but I thought that was a lot of fun. The cat and like all the powers it had, it got some really funny moments and also some pretty awesome looking moments, but I don't like the fact that is how Nick Fury lost his eye, just because how it was set up in Captain America the Winter Soldier, how it was referenced. He said, "The last time I trusted someone, I lost an eye," and he said that very seriously. That could have been a great storyline, maybe in like a more serious movie. There is a Black Widow movie coming out, which is supposed to be a prequel, I'm pretty sure. Nick Fury could definitely have been in that and lost his eye in that, trusted maybe Natasha or somebody in that circle and lost his eye there. Instead, it was played off for laughs here in this movie, where a cat, or Goose, who isn't really a cat but obviously is kind of a cat, scratched out his eye, and it's played more for laughs than anything else. It's not a huge deal, and I do still like Goose and Nick Fury in this movie a lot, but that one moment really bothered me just a little bit. Talos, the Skrull leader, was also a lot of fun in this movie. He kind of was the comedy relief in this movie, the comedic relief, which I did not see coming at all, but I do think he was great in the role as the supporting character who turns out he's not a bad guy. In the end, he's actually a good guy. That twist is something that I definitely saw coming because of promotional material that came out showing that Korath, I'm pretty sure his name is, as well as Ronan, are on the Kree's team, meaning that I thought that probably means the Kree are bad guys and the Skrulls are going to end up being good guys, so that turned out to be true in this movie. So that definitely was not a twist that I didn't see coming, but it did lend for Talos as a character to be on the side of Captain Marvel and Nick Fury, the good guys, and that definitely led to a lot of comedy. And I do think this movie is actually very funny for the most part. Not funnier than most Marvel movies, not less funny than most Marvel movies. It's really just a standard Marvel comedy, which is usually very funny. It's just not as funny as, say, like Ant-Man or Spider-Man Homecoming. It's just standard Marvel funny, and I think Talos is definitely the funniest character in this movie in terms of just being the comedy relief. However, outside of those three characters, the rest were definitely not great. In fact, I don't think any of them were good at all in this movie. There was Maria Rambeau, who was the best friend to Carl when she was in pilot, when she was trying to be a pilot, and I liked how that was included in the flashbacks, but in the present day, she was kind of shoehorned into the movie a little bit. She did not need to be in the movie at all, and I don't think like her reaction to Carol being alive again was so manufactured, and it was kind of like not even there at all, and her reaction to aliens being around, it just felt like they didn't really care about that. It was so weird, and I don't think she needed to be in the movie at all. The reason she was because her daughter in the comics, Monica Rambeau, is a version or one of the Captain or Miss Marvels, so I definitely think that she will become that in the future, maybe like as the successor to Carol Danvers as Captain Marvel, but I think that her mother was kind of shoehorned into the movie and did not need to be there at all. Phil Coulson was pretty good, but he was barely in the movie, and the villains, as I said, the twist I saw coming, and I don't think Jan Rog was a very menacing or even good villain at all, which he could have been as like the connection to Carol Danvers, like she thought of him as a friend. I didn't think the betrayal there, I didn't think there was any real feel to that. I don't think there was any emotional connection between them either, which there should have been because they were kind of friends from before this, or at least Carol thought that they were friends, while Jan Rog obviously did not think that at all. But Jan Rog I don't think was anywhere near the greatest villain in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and not even a good villain at that. This movie definitely has a lot of problems that really need to be addressed, such as like the pacing of this movie is a little bit weird. I think that it's mainly because the movie is so short. It's only 2 hours and 5 minutes, which is a lot of time, but it's also probably maybe the shortest Marvel Cinematic Universe movie. Don't quote me on that, but it's very short for a superhero movie lately, and I think that definitely lends to the pacing of this movie. It's a little quick, and it doesn't feel like the movie ever really reaches the climax. It feels like it's always building towards something, and the climax in the end was when Carol just got her powers and unlocked her abilities, which was cool, but it didn't feel like that would really be the climax of that movie. I don't know why, it just felt like the pacing of the movie, because it was so short, maybe it was because of some other factor. But I think that for the most part, like, first half of the movie is really boring and not really much is happening, like, whatsoever. And then in the second half, the stakes never really get that high. I felt like the movie would get very high in stakes. They never really did. It was just like trying to get this group of people to safety or something like that. And that's really the entire objective of the ending of the movie. I don't know why. Maybe that's why it felt like the movie was a little weirdly paced. Maybe I just felt like it was leading to something bigger, and it wasn't. If so, then that's not the fault of the movie. It's just the fault of my expectations. But I also think it's because of other factors, like maybe the movie was too short, or maybe the movie just didn't do a good job at pacing in a way that would feel like, I mean, it's exciting the entire time, or it feels like it will be leading up to something. I don't feel like it really led up to what it promised. Maybe. I'm not 100% sure if this is a fault of the movie, but either way, that is what I felt while watching the movie. Now, unlike any other MCU movie that I can think of, or really any superhero movie that I can think of, this one has sort of a political message or two. The obvious one is feminism, and I don't think that the feminism ruined the movie at all like I expected it to. I think that it was subtle enough to not be annoying, and it kind of lended into the movie pretty well with Captain Marvel in the end, like the montage of her as a kid getting up every time she falls down, and in the end, she, as Captain Marvel, has these powers. Like I said earlier, I really liked that moment. It was probably the best moment in the movie, and that definitely lends to the feminist message of this movie, and I don't think that message ruined anything, because the feminist message in general was one that I agree with. It's just not the extremes that it has been taken to in the real world. I don't agree with that, and I do think that used like the actual feminist message in this movie pretty well, where to the point that it didn't get annoying at all. There's another message, which is immigration, kind of, which is that the Skrulls, you see them as bad guys. In the end, it turns out they are just peaceful beings who want a home. That definitely is kind of a real world political. They've kind of been doing the same thing on Supergirl lately, and I do think that they did it a little bit better here, but I don't think it was subtle enough. Like, the feminist message was actually surprisingly pretty subtle. The actual like immigration message was not subtle in my opinion, and I don't want the Skrulls to be good guys. I really want them to end up being bad guys and kind of maybe be the main villains of an Avengers movie, and definitely they can serve as great villains, have some great twists where certain characters turned out to be Skrulls, and I don't think they should have used the Skrulls in this movie, even though Talos and really all of his sidekicks were really funny and a lot of fun and great characters. I would have preferred for them to be villains, or at least like be antagonists, and not exactly these 100% peaceful beings who just want a home. But in the end, I do think that the feminist message and the immigration message didn't really take away that much from the movie, and one of them actually served the movie actually pretty well. Now, despite this movie having some pretty great leads in Captain Marvel, Nick Fury, and Talos, as well as the cat Goose, there are a couple things this movie is lacking that prevents it from being a great movie, like some real emotion. I think where they could have put emotion is two things. One is when it was revealed to Maria Rambeau that Carol was still alive. It didn't seem like she reacted at all to that. I'm pretty sure I already mentioned this in this video, but there could have been some emotion there, and there wasn't. And I also mentioned this already, but when Yon-Rogg and was revealed to Carol to have been her enemy this whole time, or been using her this whole time, there should have been some emotion there, and there wasn't. This movie was really lacking that. On top of that, for the most part, this movie had no unique visuals until the end, when Carol got her powers, her full powers. That's when the visuals really went off the charts, and I love that at the end. But for the most part, in the beginning, it kind of felt just like Star Wars, where people were just using different colored blasters as well as different colored energy swords. It just felt like Star Wars, and it didn't feel like the visuals were, it didn't really come into its own until the end. Despite this, I do think the ending where Carol got her powers and she became the fully fledged Captain Marvel, that was an awesome moment, an incredible scene, and the visuals there were amazing. And on top of all that, I do think that this movie has basically no music that makes these moments epic. This movie really needed some more music, so that's a lot of things. The emotion was lacking, the visuals were lacking for the most of the movie, and there was no real music to carry the movie, so there are a lot of things this movie just doesn't have that it really needed. One thing I loved in this movie came right at the beginning, where the Marvel intro was playing and every single superhero was replaced by Stan Lee, the creator of basically every single Marvel character, including Captain Marvel, and I do think this was a great tribute. He obviously passed away late last year, and this is the first Marvel movie to come out since, and I do think they did a pretty incredible job with that tribute. And this movie actually had a Stan Lee cameo. It's probably one of the last, if not like the third to last, Stan Lee cameo we will ever get, which is obviously very sad, but I do think the Stan Lee tribute in this movie was a great way to start the movie. In conclusion, Captain Marvel is a lot better than people, kind of including myself, expected it to be, but it's also not that much better. There are a lot of things lacking from this movie that make it a great movie, or that would make it a great movie. I mean, it has a solid lead, and it does a great job of introducing Captain Marvel, aka Carol Danvers, into the universe, but it also lacks a lot of things, and it does some things that I just don't like. So I will give Captain Marvel a 7 out of 10, but let me know what you thought about Captain Marvel in the comments down below, as well as in the poll in the top right corner of the video. And if you like this video, make sure to leave a like, share, and subscribe, and thanks for watching.